Hey guys, I'm Julian, former practicing lawyer, now mental health advocate, content creator, entrepreneur. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about the internship that I did at the White House in 2014. I was an intern at the Council of Economic Advisors at the White House under President Obama's second term. I did this internship full-time while taking classes when I was at college at Berkeley during my second year. And I want to just talk to you guys about how I got it, what it was like, tips and tricks if you want to have the same experience, and just things to look out for when you're thinking about involving yourself in public service. So let me start by saying that the White House is one of the most competitive places to get internships in general. Supreme Court, White House, the FBI are some, not all, but some of the most competitive places in government to get an internship because there aren't that many spots, they're highly coveted, and the name brand is very strong. How to apply? Apply online. Everything's digital these days. Honestly, the process for applying to the White House isn't that complicated. You go on the internet, you search White House internship program, it's on the White House website, fill out your name, all the information, you may have to do a cover letter. There's usually interviews as well, but the way that I got the internship was just applying online, and in some ways it is luck. I do think that good grades will always help, and having a good resume always does help as well. If you're looking for something in the economics area, I can tell you that if you are an economics major with good grades, that will definitely give you a boost too. But applying to the White House is as simple as going on the internet, digging it up, and hitting apply. And I will put the link to the applications in the comments below. If you have an interview, and every White House internship subgroup under the administration has their own sets of interviews that they like to do and don't like to do, make sure you understand a little bit about policy. When I did my interview, it was mainly a personality fit. Do we like you? Do you like us? Do we get along? But there were some questions about policy too. What do you think you would do if you had one economic policy objective? Like, what would you accomplish, right? So just do a little bit of homework, but understand it's probably going to be a personality test. Okay, let's talk about the administrative stuff. The hours, the pay, the security clearance, all of that. When you work for the highest levels of US government, be it the Supreme Court, the executive branch, sometimes even Congress, you need to go through security clearance. And security clearance usually is done on the government side. Like, you don't have to do a ton. For me, it was taking a drug test and filling out some paperwork, and that was basically it. They did everything on their end to make sure and vet my background and ensure I wasn't in violation or would have any sort of national security concerns by working at the White House. The pay, drum roll please. $0, that's right. It was an unpaid internship at the White House. A lot of the internships at the highest level of government are unfortunately unpaid, which I don't think is very cool. I feel like you're working pretty hard as an intern and they should be paid, but that's aside the point here. Supreme Court, White House, they're unpaid. I've heard now that there are some internships with House of Representative members, with senators on Capitol Hill that are paid, and I think that's great. We need more of that. Now the hours. On a typical week, I would work 50 to 60 hours at the White House. I would be in at around 8:30 a.m., out by around 6 p.m. every day. There were some days where I stayed late until 9 p.m. There were some days where I was in there earlier for a meeting at 6:30 a.m. It definitely varied, but on average, I can tell you it was around 50 to 60 hours a week. And again, it was unpaid. I'll walk you through my daily routine while I was at the White House to give you a flavor of some of the work that I did on the Council of Economic Advisors. And before I do, let me remind you that the Council of Economic Advisors under the White House is the branch of the White House that deals primarily with analyzing and proposing economic policy for the administration. I would walk onto the White House premises around 8:30 in the morning. And first of all, that was like the coolest part of my day because there were all these tourists outside the White House, like taking photos of it, and you just walk in and I flash my badge and they let you in. And I was in the Eisenhower Executive Office building, which if you've ever been to the White House, it's this big building that's on the White House grounds, but it's not literally on or inside the White House because that's where most of the staff are. They're in this Eisenhower Executive Office building. The White House was reserved for basically the president's closest staff and some of the heads of the various teams in the administration. So the first thing I do when I get into the office is check my email. At the time, interns didn't have email on our phones, and we didn't have mobile laptops, so the only way we were communicating with our team was in the office when we get to our computer. I will clear my inbox and I'll make sure I'm on top of all the various projects I'm on. First thing I do in the morning. The bulk of our work as interns under the Council of Economic Advisors was due diligence. So for the next couple of hours in my day, usually around 9 until 11:30 a.m., I would be doing economic research to understand and evaluate the various claims that the administration was making in the economic report of the president. And the economic report of the president is essentially this booklet that the administration publishes every year on the state of the economy. My work on the economic report of the president tended to be fact-checking, due diligence, and analysis of the various claims we were making. For example, if we made a claim like, in 2012, the unemployment rate changed from 10.2% to 9.3%, I went into our raw economic data that we had on the back end and confirmed all of those numbers were correct. From 11:30 to 12, save half an hour on either end, the interns would go grab lunch. We usually had a cafe downstairs, White House cafeteria room that we would get food in, or we'd go to Chipotle down the street and come back and just kind of chill. And we had an intern room when I was at the White House, and so there was basically 10 of us all in this one room together, hanging out. It felt very much like the office. Usually after lunch, we'd have a couple of meetings. The meetings ranged from anything with the head of the Council of Economic Advisors, Jason Furman at the time, to the senior economists underneath him, to the managing economists, and so on and so forth. Of course, we were at the bottom as interns in the power structure, but that's besides the point. In these meetings, various projects would be discussed. Of course, I've told you about the economic report of the president. That was the big thing that the council worked on, but there were various other policy objectives that we would analyze as well. One of them at the time was related to natural gas and oil drilling, and more specifically, what is the carbon sort of footprint caused by 1 gallon of oil and of drilling to get that oil. And so we were looking at all the data we could and researching to find out and calculate that exact figure so we could use that as a policy objective to talk about in legislation so that President Obama could use it, etc., etc. After the meetings, it's back to the office and back to grinding until 6 p.m. And of course, during the grind time, there are various things, and it changed by the week at the White House. But just as a flavor of some of the different projects that we would work on aside from the economic report of the president, when the chairman of the CEA, Jason Furman, had meetings with high-level officials of other countries or CEOs, we would be in charge of taking the first step at cutting the biography of the person that he was going to be meeting with and just basically digging up anything we can about these people so that Jason knew going in, okay, they have 2 kids, they're from this area, here's their recent policy positions, here's what they've said in the press, and we were the ones in charge of basically preparing that first draft that was going to go directly to the chairman so that he could better prepare for those meetings. There was some busy work. It wasn't fun. There was, I remember one task that no one envied was transcribing speeches that the head, Mr. Furman, would give at events, and one of the interns would have to sit there and listen to the audio recording and literally type out all the words that he said at the speech. So that was definitely not the most fun task, but we all had our fair share of those. There were also a lot of data analyses and Excel spreadsheets and various number-based analytics that the economics team would constantly be running and be in charge of. The stock market, the unemployment numbers, jobless claims, all of these things were under scrutiny by our team at all times, because if any number changed in any one direction, we wanted to understand why, we wanted to understand how, and most importantly, we wanted to understand how do we message this to the public, how do we message this to the administration if it's bad news. We hate to be the bearer of bad news, but unfortunately, as the economic arm of the presidency, that happened fairly often during 2014 when the economy was rebounding but still very much struggling. But it wasn't all grind. We had fun too. There were moments where the chairman would have a think tank speech or a speech to Congress, and we as some of the interns would get to go with the chairman and watch him give a speech and just meet all these cool people. So that was really neat. And then there were a couple of times where we got to see the president. Not meet him directly in person, unfortunately. I was very sad. But when he would take off from the White House grounds in Marine One, the helicopter, he would sometimes walk from the West Wing on the South Lawn into the helicopter, and we would get to watch from the South Lawn, literally, 20 feet at the time, President Obama, which was a cool experience being that close to arguably the most powerful person in the world, probably the most powerful person in the world at that time. Now, let's talk about the downsides of working at the White House, because as cool as it was, and as good on my resume as it was, I can tell you that when I applied for law firms in law school, and this was like 3 years after I actually did the internship, I was still getting questions because I had it on my resume. What was that like? How was the White House? So I think the brand always has helped my resume, but realistically with you, some of the downsides here, the White House doesn't give you a lot of tangible benefits or long-lasting sorts of connections that you would think it does. What I mean by that is you go into the White House, you meet your fellow interns, you meet some of the economists, you do good work, you work hard, you're not getting paid, but that's besides the point. But then you kind of leave and move on and go your separate way from everywhere in the organization and every other person that you worked with. And in that way, you build some skills. Of course, you get exposure, direct exposure to policymaking, which is the best part of the internship. But you don't really have a foot in the door anymore. It's not like I can phone up Jason Furman, right? Or talk through economic policy as if I'm one of these senior economists now. The skills that I learned were fairly limited. The network I got from the experience, again, fairly limited. And there's not really a strong sense of loyalty to the organization after you leave, because there's not really an alumni network for interns. There's no sorts of reunions, right? And so in that way, it can kind of feel very much like you float in and then you just float out. And I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty demoralizing getting chewed out by my boss every now and then, or having somebody tell me, you did this wrong, blah, 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 when you're literally busting your chops for the organization without getting paid a dime. However, I think it was a really important experience, at least for me, because it teaches you the value and importance of public service, and more importantly than that, how deeply you need to resonate with the mission that you are working towards if you want to succeed in public service, because you're not going to be doing it for the money. And as an unpaid intern, you very much felt that. This wasn't really a downside of the internship, but I did want to tell you guys this story. They have this security at the front of the White House gates. You have to go through, even as an employee, you have to go through every time. There's a metal detector and everything. There was one time that I had office scissors, like long, like 3-inch scissors, that I had put in my bag. I forgot why. I think I was using it for a project or something, and I forgot it was in there. And I walked through the gates with it in my jacket. It wasn't my bag, it was in my jacket. And I walked to the White House grounds. I didn't even realize that I had it in there when I walked in, because like I didn't want to get extra patted down and all that, whatever. No one even noticed. And I just walked into the White House grounds with, like, I would think what would be considered a weapon, scissors. I mean, of course there were scissors on the White House grounds. Like, it's an office building, so like, it's not like there weren't scissors. But my point is, security didn't even flag it. A little bit of a red flag, I'm not gonna lie. So overall, the White House was a great experience. A lot of hard work, yes. Unpaid, also yes. But a really good way to get exposure to public policy. A really cool experience being on the front lines of policy making and feet away from where these major decisions are being made. Being on the White House grounds was very surreal. I mean, you see it in movies, but walking onto those premises every day was a very unimaginable feeling. That was probably the coolest part of it. Touring the West Wing and seeing the actual White House in person, of course, a very cool experience too, because those tours are hard to come by, and when you were an intern, you get access to those. That's all the major points on my time at the White House, though, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Let me know what you guys want to hear about from my White House experience down in the comments, and I can do more videos than this. And also, please subscribe if you guys haven't subscribed already. It would mean a ton to me and the team. We work really hard to bring this content to you guys, and honestly, we're not getting paid for it right now, but every subscription gets us a little bit closer to just making a little bit of money from this, which just helps us get the content to you in a faster way, in a better way, makes me look better because I can get facials. I mean, the whole thing, all of it's awesome. You know it, I know it. Thank you for your time as always, guys. Much love.